Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you today. I'm Tom Combs, Vice President of Texas Operations for DRC Emergency Services. First of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you during Hurricane Ike. As it's been pointed out, records were broken as far as the amount of debris that was hauled in the shortest period of time, and we're very proud that we got to work with city departments to see this done. The previous speaker, Mr. Dale, made some good points, and that is that we need to use as many local contractors as possible to accomplish this work. That's why over the last 12 months we have had 2 outreach workshops with local MWBE and non-MWBE contractors, as well as going down our list the past week in hopes that the contract would go through to make sure that every possible dollar stays in Houston, and I think we're going to meet or exceed every buy local goal that has been established. A couple of things I do want to point out quickly is, number one, this is a very unique situation. Not only do you have the problem of the drought, but you have the problem of the diseased trees. And the disease at this point is really as threatening as what the drought is. And if the trees aren't handled quickly and properly, not only do you have the problem with the trees that are already there, but you're going to see the disease spread throughout the community. So we've come up with what we feel like is the safest, most efficient method of doing this. A lot of folks that might like to cut down trees don't have the really sophisticated equipment to do it and do it safely. And some of these pieces of equipment are $500,000 pieces of equipment. But we will go into the drought-stricken and the infested areas and very surgically remove the trees, only the ones that have been identified by the city arborist as being unsalvageable. Each tree will be GPSed and photographed, so in the event a FEMA declaration does come about, you can recoup all of your costs for those trees that are inventoried. At that point, the trees will be loaded and hauled to a temporary disposal site, and unlike in Hurricane Ike when we could carry them in open containers, these will all have to be done in closed containers, because if they're not, we're going to have a situation where you're going to have pine beetles spreading all over the city. So disposal sites have been identified away from any existing pine groves, and so that we can make sure that we don't make a bad situation worse. Lastly, and I think of real interest to the city, is that working with the Parks Department, the Solid Waste Department, we've come up with a very aggressive marketing program for all of the products that will be collected. These are all going to be 100% recycled, and they will fall into 3 categories. The first category...
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Councilmember Starting.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you coming down and meeting with us as well. I think there's been a lot of good points made, and I appreciate the experience of my colleagues firsthand with this company. I also want to point out that many of us survived the hurricane seasons and over the many years, and my aunt at the age of 80 years old had a 60-year-old pine tree go through the middle of her home, and it's devastating. And there's a sense of urgency because last week one of my neighbors had a tree fall on and luckily it just clipped the corner of the house, but it could have gone through her family room. So I think there is a sense of urgency for safety, public safety, to continue moving forward with this. I do know that the 60-year-old pine tree did require heavy lifting. An actual crane had to be brought in from LaGrange. Thank goodness my dad had knew people that knew people, and the network, and we were able to get that. But there's just so much involved in it is a dangerous job. So I do appreciate Councilmember Sullivan's comments on their expertise, and I think we need to move forward as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Combs, I understand you touched on this, but I think it's worth mentioning again that the trees, different trees will be handled differently. Some of them will be mulched, can't say that word today. Some of them, the timber will be harvested, and others, particularly the pine trees that have pine bark beetle infestations, have to be contained and destroyed. They can't be
Very close. And sort of in reverse order, the highest and best use for the logs will be sold to lumber companies. And that's the ones that will receive the most revenue that will go back to the city of Houston. The second use will be chipped or ground and used for boiler fuel and cogen fuel. The last remaining trees that are either diseased or chips too small to be used for cogeneration will then be used for erosion and landfill cover. So, it's estimated that since the city gets all of these revenues, that the revenues back to the city will offset a pretty substantial portion of the cost of the project.
Although there are a lot of trees coming down around the state of Texas, so I think timber prices are probably coming down.
Yeah, it's a soft market.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Combs, you mentioned that the process that the city and DRC would operate under would be something that if FEMA funds would be available down the road, that this process would help to put us in a position to be able to recoup some funding, correct?
Absolutely. We've met with the Parks Department and the Solid Waste Department. This will be documented just like it was a FEMA-approved project, so that should the declaration go into effect, you'll have all the records to go back and recoup your funds, just like in Ike. The city did such a good job of documentation. Every penny was recouped, and we'll plan on doing this exactly the same way.
And of the trees that have been identified, maybe about 10,000 or so, how quickly or how much? What kind of timeline are you looking at to removing?
Well,
those?
we could move probably faster than you'd want us to. I mean, because we could have 200 crews in here just like we did for Ike and clean them out very quickly. The sensitive part of this is giving the Parks Department the time to get in ahead of us and identify those trees that are truly diseased or truly dead, so that it doesn't become a logging operation. And we really are sensitive to the fact that it's going to change the landscape. But the ultimate goal is to save the remaining tree canopy in Houston, as well as enhance public safety.
And speaking on the tree canopy, DRC is going to be providing some seedlings as well, right?
Right. We are going to donate 20,000 seedlings back to the city for the use of community groups, the Parks Department, Trees for Houston. Seedlings aren't anything like losing 10,000 trees, but at least it's an investment in the future.
Thank you.
Although we're not going to plant them until it starts raining again. Councilmember Pennington.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand how the trees need to be classified, as you've just mentioned, but I think we're also interested in doing it with dispatch, but also using local companies and labor to the extent that we can. I believe you talked about that, as well as your minority contracting experience. You have a long history of working with the city, so you have a history of whether you met those requirements, and I'd just like for you to speak to both of those issues. And also, if you've had any conversations with the people interested in the different neighborhoods and the conservancies of Herman Park and Memorial Park.
Yes, sir. First of all, we met or exceeded all of our MWBE goals after Ike. We learned a lot from all of that, a lot of things we do better, so we anticipate more than exceeding our goals this time. Any local contractor that is qualified and would like to work on this job, I'll leave my phone number and I've got my cards. Please call me, and we'll put them to work. And then the second part of your question, Councilman, was...
have you been able to consult with any of the...
Oh, yes. I've called Nancy Sullivan at the Conservancy, and we've missed each other, but I'm set to give her a briefing so that we can make sure that they're on board with what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.